Hello, I'm David Edwards. I'm an anaesthetics CT1 in the Derbyshire hub of the East Midlands School of Anaesthesia. Today I'll be talking about supervised learning events and reflections on the lifelong learning platform. We will cover what different type of SLEs there are, some tips on how to link to the portfolio, a bit on supervision levels and on etiquette in sending SLEs. And for people who are new to the portfolio, SLEs are workplace-based assessments, are known as on the anaesthetic portfolio. Supervised learning events are accessed through the dashboard under the New Entry tab, so we'll click through onto that. And then we have a list of different available SLEs. There are different SLEs for sort of core anaesthetics compared to ACCS, so just complete the assessments which are relevant to your training pathway. I'll briefly summarise the different types of SLEs, or at least my interpretation of them. So firstly, we have ACEXs, or anaesthesia clinical evaluation exercise, which are typically used related to a period of observed anaesthetic practice. So, for example, if a trainee's pre-assessed a patient, planned their anaesthetic, and then delivered this with a supervisor assessing them, it can be used to demonstrate trainees' decision-making, practical skills, communication, and team working, amongst others. The Anaesthesia Quality Improvement Project Assessment Tool is a new type of SLE introduced with the 2021 curriculum. It's used to summarise the quality improvement project's aims, methodology and outcome, and to reflect upon the quality improvement project generally. DOPS, or direct observation procedural skills, are likely to be familiar to trainees. They're simply used to assess observed procedural skills, for example, intubation or spinal anaesthesia. CCC forms, or capability cluster completion forms, are used to assess specific areas of anaesthetic practice which were previously discrete units of training under the old curriculum. That includes paediatric, cardiothoracic, neuro and obstetric anaesthesia, and these will be discussed in a separate video. ALMATs, or anaesthesia list management assessment tools, are used to demonstrate the ability to run the anaesthetic aspects of a surgical list. So that might include preoperative preparation, intra and post-operative care, team interactions, risk management, etc. Case-based discussions are used to summarise any educational discussions that you've had with a supervisor during a case. For example, you may have discussed the principles of anaesthesia for robotic surgery during a case, and these discussions can be captured in a case-based discussion. So those are how I use the SLEs, but feel free to use them as feels appropriate to you and your training. So to demonstrate, we'll use an ACEX, and the forms for ACEX, DOPS and CBDs are very similar. The other SLE types slightly different, but fairly self-explanatory as you go through them. So we'll click on to ACEX. We can put in a title, so just as a demonstration, we'll say GA for laparoscopic appendicectomy. And just make sure that title makes sense to you and anyone else that's looking at your portfolio at a later stage. So we've got a couple of options for choosing an assessor. So firstly, here you've got a list of recent assessors, so anyone that you've recently sent another SLE to perhaps, and if you just wish to use them again, you can simply click on their name. You should have your education and college tutors set up here, so if one of them are doing an SLE for you, you can just select their name. But if you need to search for an assessor, you can do that in this box here. So most consultants should be accessible through this search bar. So we'll demonstrate using this sort of generic East Midlands trainer. If you wish, you can just limit to your hospitals. we'll just click through search, and here it's given us, it's found that assessor for us, and we just simply click on their name to link it to the SLE. We'll go back into the assessor section just to talk about guest assessor. So if a supervisor isn't on the LLP, or you can't find them through this box, for example, sometimes if you've got a senior trainee doing an assessment for you, you won't be able to search them through here, and so you can add them as a guest assessor. We click on here, and then you just put in their details and the email address that they want the assessment to be sent to, and you can include them. The thing to note is that guest assessors cannot complete the assessment using the quick approval option, which we'll discuss in more detail in a moment. But we'll go back to the assessment. So once we've selected our assessor, we then move on to linking to our key capabilities. So this is how you actually link your assessment to the curriculum. Select the stage of training that's relevant for yourself, and then scroll down, and we've got all of the curriculum domains of learning, and so we can select which ones are relevant. For this one, we'll just go into general anaesthesia. Here it breaks down the different key capabilities. It will give you recommendations for different types of assessment you can perform, for example. And at the bottom then we've got the key capabilities. We'll just, as a demonstration, select this first one. We click on link, and it has been linked. We can then proceed to link other key capabilities. If we wish, we can return back to the curriculum here to select another domain of learning to link, for example. We're just going to return to assessment. A few tips on linking. So there's no limit on how many key capabilities you can link to an activity, but just ensure they are all clearly relevant to the assessment. In order to cover the breadth of the curriculum efficiently, aiming to link at least 3 capabilities to each activity is a useful target. However, it won't always be possible. Look through the curriculum fairly frequently so that you know which capabilities you need to collect evidence for, and this will allow you to complete targeted SLEs and activities, ensuring that you cover the curriculum. Some of the curriculum capabilities can seem a bit more obscure than others. So, for example, if we click into management and professional regulatory requirements and scroll down, for example, here, key capability D stays up to date with and complies with relevant guidance from the GMC and other professional bodies. Could seem a little awkward to link to assessments, so we just have to be a bit creative. So, for example, if in this assessment I included a line about disposing of controlled drugs observed by an ODP, then perhaps we could link it and discuss the association of anaesthetist guidance on perioperative management of controlled drugs. So with a bit of creativity there, we can link it through. We'll go back to the assessment. So once we've linked to key capabilities, we select the date of the assessment. We're just going to put today. And then description of activity. Here you can just summarize the case, and you can include as much or as little as you want here. So we're just going to put 16-year-old male. You're going to then capture the bulk of the learning from the assessment under the next box, so summary of reflective discussion. And in here you can summarise the discussion you've had with your assessor, any learning points, anything you feel that you can improve on next time round. And your assessor can also add further comments into this section when they come to complete the SLE. The final box then is suggestions for future development. So this can be completed by yourself or by the assessor. So if you've had a discussion about suggested improvements, you can put them in here. Otherwise, when your assessor comes to complete the SLE, they can put their own suggestions in this box here. Supporting documents. You can link anything you wish. So, for example, if you've discussed or looked at a key paper related to an SLE, then you might wish to add that as a PDF. And then finally, we've got a few different options for sending the SLE for approval to your assessor. If the assessor would like you just to email the assessment, or for example, if you're completing it after sometime after speaking to them, we would just click send agreement, and it would send an email link to the assessor, who can then complete the assessment at a time convenient for them. But sometimes a good option, if you've got a bit of time on a list with the consultant, you might wish to do a quick agreement. So you complete the SLE as we've discussed, and then just click on quick agreement. And the assessor can then put in their LLP password, which will take them through to the completion form. They can add any additional comments and then sign off the SLE with sort of supervision levels, which we'll discuss in a moment. But we will just return back to the assessment. You've also got options just to save and return to dashboard if you want to come back to add to the SLE before sending it. And if you just want to also delete it, you can select delete here. We're going to send for assessment. In fact, I'm just going to put in a couple of comments because it will not let us in. But there we go. Send for agreement. And then at the bottom under recent activity, you can see our ACEX here. Its status is as submitted, so it's been sent to the assessor. Once they've completed it, it will then say completed here. And you can click back onto the assessment to go back and see their comments. So we mentioned briefly there levels of supervision. So supervision levels were introduced to SLEs with the 2021 curriculum, and they're selected by the assessor when approving the SLE. They're intended to guide and reflect progress rather than being seen as summative marks. They reflect the level of supervision the trainee would require if they perform the same activity again, right here, right now. And hopefully a trainee will be able to demonstrate their progress over the course of their training by moving from a level of close supervision to levels of more distant supervision, and finally to independent practice. And the college expects that by the time of CCT, trainees have demonstrated capabilities at level 3. So to note, supervision levels are not simply the supervision level that the trainee had during that assessment. For example, a trainee may have been directly supervised in theatre by a consultant for a case, which would be level 1. But actually, the assessor may feel that the trainee could complete the same case with the supervisor not directly present, but within the hospital, and therefore the level of supervision for the assessment would be 2B. You should feel empowered to discuss levels of supervision with your assessor when discussing the assessment, and hopefully get the appropriate supervision level. So to attain the IAC, anaesthetists in training must be able to perform each EPA at supervision level 2B. The HALO guides for each stage of training, which are available on the college website, have suggested supervision levels for each key capability in the curriculum, and they're tailored to each stage of training. And then just a few tips on sort of etiquette in sending SLEs. It's important to discuss the SLE with an assessor before sending it, to ensure they're happy to complete it, and also to pull out as many learning points as possible. It's advisable to proofread an SLE before sending it to ensure that it makes sense and covers all learning points, and also covers all of the key capabilities that you link to. Writing and submitting SLEs as promptly as possible after the learning event will allow it to be fresh in the assessor's mind. Remember that if you have a spare time during a list, why not write the SLE there and then and ask the assessor if they would be happy completing it using the quick agreement option. If an assessor has not completed an SLE in a reasonable time frame, consider politely reminding them, but avoid frequent reminders or appearing rude. And it may actually just be worth checking that their email address on the SLE is correct. Try to always read your assessor's comments on the SLE after they've approved it on the LLP, as they may well have included some useful feedback and advice. So hopefully that's covered the key points for supervised learning events. We'll now briefly cover personal reflections on the LLP, so we'll just head back. So hopefully you're familiar with the principles of reflective practice. If you're not, or you feel you need a bit of guidance, there's guidance documents on the college website from the GMC and Academy of Medical Royal Colleges, which is really useful. Reflection forms are available from the dashboard under the New Entry tab, so we'll click through here. The form provides a basic structure for your reflections, but you should feel able to use them as you feel necessary. As well as reflecting on positive and negative experience in training, they can also be used to record learning from clinical experience that's not formed part of an SLE. So we can just enter a title here, so incident. Under review, this is where you might just want to summarise the case and actually the events of what happened. I'll just put in something there. Experience gained, so what did you learn from this experience? And then under resulting change, things that you would do differently next time around. It's important to remember that reflection should be anonymised as far as possible, so avoid including any patient identifiable information at any point. And if you wish, at the end, you can link your reflection to key capabilities on the curriculum. But we will just save and return to dashboard. Now you'll find this on the LLP. If you haven't completed sections, sort of mandatory sections, it will just flag up as red before allowing you to save. So we're just going to enter in a little bit into this these boxes. And hopefully that will then allow us to save. There we go. And then you can now see the reflection at the bottom here. So that's briefly covered reflection on the LLP, and that's ends this talk. I hope that's been useful. We'd really appreciate your feedback on this video series, and you can access that through this QR code here. Thank you very much.